Welcome back to World of Tanks, and this is part 2 of a 10-part series, which will take you through from the Tier 1 Lowell tractor all the way through to the mighty E100 and review each tank in the line and tell you what you need for it, what I recommend for it anyway, top guns, crew skills, etc., etc. So, today we are in the Panzer II. This is not any of the odd variants, this is just the Panzer II. First entering service in 1936, the Panzer II served throughout the war all the way to 1945. First in Poland and in France, where it made up the vast majority of the German armored forces. It was then dispatched to North Africa and Russia. It was eventually supplanted by the Panzer IIIs and IVs, in which case it became primarily a scout vehicle. It was also used as the chassis for various tank destroyers and self-propelled gun. The tank maintained its service clear through the end of the war and was fighting right up into the very end outside of Berlin. Much like the previous tank, which was built as a training tank, this tank was never really intended to see combat. It was at least made out of metal in real life, not just in the game. It was actually built with metal, and it did actually see service clear up till 1944 in various roles as scout tanks and some times as a command tank for a recon unit or whatnot. This particular one is armed with a 20mm cannon. I believe that's a 20mm. Flak 38, I believe. 2 centimeter. I'm not sure what centimeter translates into as far as millimeter, but anyway, it's got a decent enough gun for Tier 2. It's not a great gun. Nothing at Tier 2 is, but it gets the job done. So, starting from the top, it's got 170 hit points, which if you look at the last tank had 130. So that's about 40 more hit points. It definitely looks like a typical tank now. It's got a 10.8 ton load limit with a 160 horsepower engine, so it's got about the same load limit, but it's got almost twice the horsepower. It's got a top speed of 40, which it will actually reach. It's got a 40 degrees per second traverse speed, which is the same as the last tank, and a lot of the lower tier tanks are going to have decent traverse speed. Sometimes you can actually make these tanks drift. It's kind of fun to do. Hull armor. It's got 30 at the front, 20 at the sides, and 15 at the rear. It will bounce some. If they're shooting at you with an autocannon from the front and you've got a little bit of an angle, you will bounce it a lot. But I would recommend you don't rely on armor. Again, this is nothing at this tier has that much in the way of armor, so you don't want to rely on it. Just put it that way. If you see someone who's going to shoot you, kill them. Turret armor is the same as the hull, except that it's got 20mm at the rear. The shell damage is pretty low. It's 8 to 14 damage with 29 to 49 penetration. But you get to shoot 131 rounds a minute, so it adds up pretty quick. I believe it's got a 4-round clip. No, it's got a 10-round clip. And the reload time for a complete reload is 3.9 seconds, which isn't bad. A lot of higher tier tanks wish they would have a single shell reload time of that, so it's not terribly bad. It's got a turret traverse speed of 44 degrees per second. The view range with the binocular telescopes is 369. Signal range is 431. And that is actually kind of compromised because I'm running my Tier 1 crew in it. I didn't want to buy a new crew for a tank that I'm only going to keep long enough to make this video. I keep most of my German tanks, but Tier 2, Tier 3, most of them aren't really tanks I enjoy playing that much, so with the need for space for my other tanks, I'm probably going to be selling this one as soon as I get done making this video. That's not to say it's a bad tank, it's just it's not a keeper for me. Again, I've got camo net and binoculars on it. That's because you can demount them and move them to other stuff without having to pay anything. So I've got a few dozen of those, and I just swap them between tanks. The other slot's empty because I don't want to pay for something for this tank. As far as ammo goes, I've got 300 rounds, and bear in mind that's really only 30 rounds because every time you go to reload it eats 10. But I've got 300 rounds of AP and 20 rounds of APCR. APCR is expensive. I don't really intend on keeping the tank very long, so I don't really want to have a large amount of expensive ammunition on it. And that's pretty much it. Of course, this tank was intended as a training tank. They meant to phase it out in favor of the Panzer III, which was going to be a true anti-tank tank. But World War II happened about 10 years before the German rearmament program had finished, and so they were stuck with a lot of these little things. I think it was something like a quarter of their tank force was either Panzer Is or Panzer IIs. So they had a lot of these, and if you ever come up against a Matilda in one of these, you'll understand why they had some difficulties. That gun just could not handle it. But it was fast, and it did serve the purpose. You could mob the infantry of the enemy's defending positions and just completely overrun them. The shock value of them was what made them so good. The Germans were able to use them very effectively for shock value. Alright, well, that's about enough of the tank, so let's go ahead and get you some battles. So here we are in the Panzer II, and I've realized something in the 3 days I've been playing this tank trying to get a decent replay, and that is that I really don't like this tank, and that's probably why I sold it in the first place. The gun. I'm pretty sure it's the gun. Because, well, it feels a little bit sluggish unless you're on a road. It's not really all that slow. And the armor's not bad. For a Tier 2, it's really not bad. Tetrarch. Let's see what we can do against the Tetrarch. See? The armor's not stopping anything from him, but we're able to out-damage him and kill him, so that's nice. But yeah, that gun, it shoots really fast, and that's actually kind of the downfall, at least for someone like me. I tend to like being able to hit what I'm shooting at, and as it shoots 2-round bursts, every time it fires the first round, the dispersion circle gets really huge, and the second round doesn't hit the target unless you're at point blank range. And considering as how I just stopped there and popped up my binoculars to see if I could see anything, I couldn't, so I'm moving on. But back to what I was talking about, seeing as how I like to be able to hit what I shoot at, and when the dispersion circle gets as big as the dispersion circle's getting on this, makes it rather difficult to do. See if we can get this M1 medium. You see how the shells are just going everywhere. When the shells just go everywhere like that, you really can't kill anything. It's really hard. Unfortunately, the other two guns that you can get for this thing aren't any better than what that first one was. There he is again. Ooh, that hurt. But we managed to get him. Remember what I was saying, the armor's not terrible? That T7 combat car just tried to waste us and bounced every shot they fired. But unfortunately, us shooting back with that dispersion, we only hit him one time. Now Artie's shooting at us. So we're going to pull behind this building and sit still for a minute and let us disappear off the radar. Oh, can we get this guy? He's a long way away. I think we hit him there. No, we hit him there. And can we finish him off? Yes. 3 kills. What about that guy? No, he's over the hill. Which the T7 combat car has crappy penetration. So that's probably part of why he couldn't pen us. But the armor isn't terrible, and I was angled. And right now I'm spotting these guys. If you're within 50 meters of another tank, it doesn't matter how well camouflaged they are, or if they're behind a rock or whatever, you'll still spot them. I need to do a video on spotting mechanics and whatnot. Oh, is he coming for us? I think he's trying to, but he's getting torn up from the guys on the hill, so that's good. And there he goes, he's dead. This Vic's getting shot up. I think he's about to die. Is there anything else back here for us to spot? There goes the Vic. So that's some nice spotting damage for us too. Always nice to get spotting damage because it's damage that you don't have to actually do anything for. Remember, when you're shooting, every shell you shoot you're having to pay for. It doesn't really matter too much when you're at low tier like this. When you get up to the higher tiers and you're spending 14,000 credits on a single shell, then it can get expensive. But when you spot somebody, you get half of all the damage that's done to them. So this T-18 that I'm spotting here, every hit that goes into him, like that one, I get half of the credits and XP for having him get killed. So there's only one left. It's the Artie. Can we get him? I want to get the Artie. Let's go get the Artie. There he is. Let's use the auto lock. He's looking right at us. Oh, and he shoots us. And we're dead. But that was a decent enough game. And honestly, it's the first decent game I've had in this tank since I started trying to play it. So only one replay for tonight because of that. Recommendations for this thing would be get through it as fast as you can. The next tank's a little bit better. I remember playing the Panzer IIIA, and it's not a bad tank at all. It's the first tank that you can actually get a real cannon on, so it's not too bad. It can actually do some damage. So I hope you liked this video. If you did, be sure to like it and check out my other videos, and I'll see you next time.